Hi guys, welcome back to the Library of Alexandria. And today guys, it is boosh. I'm not reviewing anything. This is my top 10 favorite authors 2022 edition. Even though it's in 2023. So a couple years ago, I meant to do these every year, like do the kind of top 10 my favorite books of the year, which I managed to do last year, and I've done this year as well. My top 10 authors, top 10 series, top 10, I guess, standalones or whatever. Because I like to do some top 10. I mean, I don't normally drop top 10s all the time because, like, you know, I can't read a ton of books, so like, ooh, top 10 books of quarter one. I'm lucky if I've read 10 books in quarter one, you know what I mean? So, I was not able to do it last year. Last year was really difficult for me in terms of like actually getting out content. I had a lot going on at work and had some, personal issues, and then I was hit by a car in December when I would normally be filming a lot of those. So, I'm bringing it back. I'm doing it now. This is my no, major changes. Maybe I'll use that for the thumbnail. So if you got here based on my clickbaity thumbnail, there's probably not major changes. Without wasting any more time, let's get down to business. Let's go ahead and talk about my top 10 authors. So I think last time I did this, I threw in some honorable mentions. I'm not going to do that, but there is not really a rhyme or reason to how I do this other than I'm kind of rating this based on how often I think about this author's works. How often they ruminate within my brain, and also recency as well. As you're going to see, if I've read them recently, they are more higher up than if I am just remembering the books, which is why every year this will kind of change depending on if a book came out by them recently and that I've read. So that kind of like shuffles things, and so every year it'll kind of be shuffled. And who knows, when I read new authors, who knows who will find their way onto that spot. Also, I probably have to have read like a body of their work, I'm not going to put anybody who've just read like one or two of their books on there, unless that's like literally all they wrote, in which case, that's not fair for them. They didn't write anything and they're dead. So yeah, whatever. Let's go to number 10, which may or may not be controversial. Oh, speaking of controversy, hey guys, this is my top 10 favorite authors. Like, don't go down into the comments being like, that's objectively incorrect. So-and-so is a better writer. I don't give a crap who's a better writer than who. I don't care. I don't care. This is my favorite authors. My top 10 favorite authors. Not random list of the top 10 objectively best authors. That's not what that is. And guess what? If you don't like mine, you're welcome to go create yours. So, how dare you put this person in front of this other person? Guys, chill out. Chill out. I didn't go to your house and douse you with water for some reason. I didn't do that. I didn't ding-dong ditch you and run off with your newspaper. Let's all... And you know what? If I'm an idiot because I like this author over this other one, okay, I'm an idiot. But you're the one arguing with someone on the internet, so I don't know what to tell you. At any rate, number 10. At number 10, I have George R.R. Martin. And this is one of these situations where I don't think that Martin is the worst on this list. However, it has been a long time since I read a Game of Thrones book. In fact, I haven't read a Game of Thrones book since Dance with Dragons came out. And if Winds of Winter ever gets a release date, I will go back and reread those books, and he will probably jump way higher. So that's really the only reason he's so low. But the reason he's on here is because I'm sitting here trying to think of people to put on my list, and I can't not, because prior to joining BookTube, or really a little bit before, where I just started reading a lot more fantasy, Martin was it was always the series I went back to. I read the first 3 books several times, my buddy and I, while we were waiting for the next ones to come out in high school, that I think about the moments in the Song of Ice and Fire series a lot, more than many, many other things that I have read, because some of those things were the first time I had seen something like that in a novel, the first time that had happened, or just the strong emotions that accompanied a lot of the moments, especially within the first 3 books. I don't feel as attached to books 4 and 5. Again, I've only read them once, but I don't feel nearly as attached to them as I do the first 3. And So a lot of times when I'm thinking about character work or dialogue or like plot twists, I think about the Song of Ice and Fire series. And I love the way his political intrigue is done. And I love many, many of his characters and those character arcs. There are some like Bran, like, I don't give a crap where Bran's going or where he ends up. He could just not include Bran in Winds of Winter, and I would not even remember that Bran was a character. I don't care. But I would be remiss if I left Martin off of this list because of how kind of formative Martin's works were to me, understanding like fantasy as different than just the standard like Forgotten Realms fare, which is a lot of what I read prior, most of the fantasy that I read before Martin. And so I think it's always going to have a place on the list, because I think what Martin does, I don't think anybody does it better, really. And I know he was definitely the first author I read that had different chapters segmented by character name, and the deep limited third person. So yeah, number 10 is Martin. If you think he belongs higher, like I agree with you. Like, I agree with you, but I haven't read it in a long time, so that's how I'm doing it. It's more fair, because I need to reread them and see if they hold up. I'm sure they do, but I do need to reread them. So number 10, boom, George R.R. Martin. At number 9 for me, now we're getting to the authors that I've read more recently. I'm going to say Boosh. Why do I keep saying Boosh? I don't have a card. I'm not pointing anything. Anyway, it is Adrian Tchaikovsky. Adrian Tchaikovsky is a new favorite author of mine that I discovered while being on BookTube, and I think the first thing I read of his was Guns of the Dawn, and it was after I read with Shelf Space Promise of Blood by Brian McClellan. And I had already read Shadow Campaigns by Django Wexler. And so after the disappointment of Promise of Blood, me and several people from Shelf Space were looking for a different Flintlock fantasy that was not Promise of Blood, because we didn't really enjoy it. And we found Guns of the Dawn by Adrian Tchaikovsky, and I loved Guns of the Dawn, and it's probably still my favorite Tchaikovsky book. And since then, I have read a bunch of Tchaikovsky's fantasy. I read Elder Race of his sci-fi, and I know people love his sci-fi, but I've read mostly his fantasy, like Shadows of the Apt and City of Last Chances, which is also fantastic, and I've read a bunch of his novellas, and I'm still not even close to finishing his bibliography. What I love about Tchaikovsky is how, like, he is so talented at writing different kinds of books. He has, like, if you don't like this Tchaikovsky book, okay, cool, try this one. It's nothing like this one. Hey, try this one. It's nothing like that one. Try this one. It's nothing like that one. His novella Ogres is one of my favorite novellas ever, because it is unlike anything I've ever read. And then Elder Race is nothing like that. And then his other novellas are nothing like that. He is just such a talented writer at writing different things. And one of the common links is that bugs aren't in all of them, but bugs are in many of them. I love his Shadow of the App series more than most people who read it. Even though I have not yet finished that. And the reason he's over Martin is because I haven't read Martin recently, and I've read Tchaikovsky recently. And the reason he's not, Tchaikovsky isn't higher, is because I do think about Tchaikovsky's books, but they don't live over and over in my head all the time. I will go, days or a week or so without thinking about a Tchaikovsky book. I do always come back to them. So I do think about them, especially when people are talking about them a lot. But I haven't connected with any kind of Tchaikovsky character the way I have with basically every other author on this list. So he has yet to write that's me in a book. Oh man, I identify with that character so much. And that is probably why he does not take a higher spot. But I love the way Tchaikovsky writes. I think his writing style is the best it's ever been in his most recent book, City of Last Chances. And if you haven't tried out Tchaikovsky, you definitely should. He's got basically something for everybody, literally something for everybody. At the number 8 slot, we have Josiah Bancroft, the author of the Books of Babel series. So Bancroft will probably jump higher after this year when I have read, because his new book, The Hexologist, comes out. And otherwise, I have not read anything by Bancroft since before the release of Fall of Babel. But the Books of Babel series and the characters, Senlin especially, will always have a special place in my heart, because it was the first new series that I read after joining BookTube. And I read the first one because my wife picked it out for me. I was like, pick a book for me to read. And she picked this one. And I just loved it. I love the way that Bancroft writes. I love the sheer amount of like poetic vocabulary that he uses. The whimsical and poetic way of writing about these juxtaposed, like, bleak and horrible situations, like someone getting gunned down, like, in front of the characters, yet it's written in this very whimsical style with beautiful prose. And I love it. And I know a bunch of people don't like the last book, The Fall of Babel, whatever. Okay. It's still an amazing series. Fall of Babel was my least favorite of the four, but I still love it because I was so invested in everything these characters were doing. And yeah, so I think about these characters. I think about Senlin and the other characters that are fleshed out as the series go on. I think about them on a regular basis, and I think about Bancroft's writing style on a regular basis. I am constantly learning new words from reading the Books of Babel, and it's just a very meaningful series to me, and I love the way Bancroft writes. I love the way he can turn a phrase. So Bancroft will, barring me like, oh, I hate the hexologist, I doubt that will happen. Bancroft will probably be on my favorite authors list really forever. Next on the list, we have Sebastien de Castell. Now, Sebastien de Castell and Bancroft are probably going to like constantly flip-flop for me because I read the Greatcoats like right after I read the Senlin books, or I read all of Greatcoats before like the fourth book of Babel came out, and that was basically the second series that I read on BookTube. And just like I was attached to Senlin in the Books of Babel, I was drawn to Falkio in the Greatcoat series. I love the idea of traveling magistrates. That's one of the reasons that I love the Empire of the Wolf series by Richard Swan. I love the idea of traveling magistrates. I love fencing. I love I just love books that deal with justice. Hence why I love Sam Byam so much. And Falkio's just like overdeveloped sense of justice and his despair at the world not being what it needs to be, and these Greatcoats just going around and trying to right the wrongs of society while being guided basically by nobody because their king that they served and set them on their way is dead. And just all of the darkness and the trauma that they go through, and Falkio, just his love for his friends and his love for the law and for justice, despite the fact that everyone tries to just break him down and smush him into little bitty pieces. The Greatcoats, I just love the Greatcoats, and I'm never not going to love the Greatcoats, and everybody can go in here and tell me how much you hate the Greatcoats, and that's fine. And okay, now I'm going to show up at your house and I'm going to pee all over your doorstep, and I'm going to tell you why the series that you like is equally stupid. So please do not talk to me about like, oh, those plot conveniences. I mean, okay, Sazed's a whiner. Boom, done. But at any rate, I have read a novel by de Castell more recently. I cannot wait for the new Greatcoats book to come out. I just read The Malevolent Seven, the first book in a new I think it's a new series. It has to be a new series by the way it ended. I've also read the first book in his Spellslinger, which is it's more younger adult, so I didn't love that one as much as Greatcoats, and I didn't love The Malevolent Seven. It's a really good book, but I did not like it as much as Greatcoats just because it's wizards who are actually terrible people. As opposed to Greatcoats, who like I guess aren't. I mean, they're not the best either, but they are trying to be better. And also I like fencers and the law more than I like casters and their issues. But reading The Malevolent Seven reminded me how much I love de Castell's style. The cliffhangers at the end of chapters that just make you like, oh, I gotta read another chapter. And just the witty style in which he writes and the breakneck pace that last act goes at. I love de Castell, and he's also super nice. So is Bancroft. Like, I have spoken with both of them, so I mean, you can call this list biased if you need it to be. I will always read anything that de Castell comes out with. I'm working on finishing the Spellslinger series this year. So yeah, de Castell at number 7. At number 6, we have Bernard Cornwell, author of the Warlord Chronicles and the Sharp series, and also the Saxon series, which I have not read any of. But I loved Cornwell before I joined BookTube. I have loved the Sharp series, even though I've only read about half of them. Obadiah Hakeswill is probably the worst, the best and most despicable and hateable villain in all of fiction. I have not yet read a villain that I hate as much as Obadiah Hakeswill.
Sharp.
The closest second is Lancelot in the Warlord Chronicles, also by Bernard Cornwell. So he has written my two most hated villains in all of fiction. I read the Warlord Chronicles, I guess not last year, I guess the year before. So, yeah, 2021. Regardless, I loved it so much. I think about the Warlord daily. In fact, every time I finish an audiobook, I consider restarting the Warlord Chronicles on audio, because Jonathan Keeble is a brilliant narrator. I never thought I could ever like anything about the Arthur mythology. I don't care about King Arthur or his stupid round table or his stupid knights or any dumb Excalibur Grail crap. I don't care. I don't care. Except that I love the Warlord Chronicles so much, and I love Merlin, Derval, and I love Derval, and I love and hate Arthur, and I hate Guinevere. I understand her, but I hate her. And I hate Gorfithid, and it's so good. It's so good. And I love the Sharp series. I love Napoleonic War fiction. I love Arthur Wellesley, how he's just not very likable, but very capable. And I love Richard Sharp, how it's just good. Like, I don't know anyone who writes sieges better than Bernard Cornwell, or battle scenes. He is probably the best battle scene writer I have ever read. Now, there are people who get close. There are people who remind me of Cornwell when they write them, and that is the highest praise I can ever pay an author. But I absolutely love Bernard Cornwell. I wish I had read all of the Sharp books, could finish all of them, but I have not. But he will probably always be on my list as well, because I cannot stop thinking about the Warlord Chronicles. And Sharp has lived, inside my brain for so very long. And, anytime I hear someone say, "Oh, it says so in the scriptures," they don't say it like that, but
Sharp.
I hate Obadiah Hakeswill. I freaking hate him.
Sharp.
So Bernard Cornwell is rocking that number 6 slot. We are now in the top 5, and at number 5, we have Steven Erikson, author of the Malazan Book of the Fallen, and I guess the new the other series too, and then the new Witness trilogy, which all of it isn't out yet. And so the north part of this list, really 1 through 6, 1, 2, and 3, the top 3 were easy, but like 4, 5, and 6 were really, really difficult to nail down for me, and even now, my 4, 5, and 6 may not actually be true. Like, may all be swapped around. This is just what I decided to go with, because I was agonizing over it. Literally, the guy stared at a piece of paper for 20 seconds. Not 20 seconds, 20 minutes, trying to organize top 10. And like, at some point, I'm like, I gotta film this video. Like, I'm just gonna film this video. Like, I can't stare at this stupid piece of paper anymore. I have read the first half of Malazan Book of the Fallen many times, and they are long books. And even though I don't love everything about Malazan Book of the Fallen, as you've heard me talk about it, my opinions are generally unpopular. I think Book 8 is Toll the House is not good. I mean, it's good, but like, it's my least favorite, like, by a long shot. Like, it's not even close. Like, Toll the Hounds and then any other book in Malazan Book of the Fallen. But the things that are done well in those books are moments that I still remember incredibly vividly. There are moments in each book that I remember incredibly clearly, and I just remember the height of emotion or despair or victory that I felt when I was reading them. There are some characters that I really, really like. There are sections that when I read through the first time, I didn't, it was like whatever. But then when I read through it a second time, just really, like, I just devoured them. I know the beginning of House of Chains is one of them. When I first read it, I was like, I hate this. But then when I read House of Chains the second time, I read that entire first part in basically a sitting, like on a car trip down to Orlando. I think Steven Erikson is some of the best battle writing around. Like, again, like, I would compare his siege writing to Cornwell. Like, it's that good. His some of my favorite sieges in all of fiction. And y'all know I love military fantasy. I love sieges, absolutely. The sieges in, in several of those books. There's one of them that's maybe the best siege I've ever read. He just writes really compelling military fiction, and I like the thematic components of Malazan Book of the Fallen, but I'm not the one that you come to talk about thematic things and compassion when it comes to Malazan Book of the Fallen. You come to me to talk about the way that Erikson writes the camaraderie between the soldiers and the military action and all of the political intrigue and the rebellions in various continents and the conquest and imperialism in various continents. That's what I read it for, and I think Erikson does it. He's one of the best in the business in doing that. There's a lot of other stuff that's confusing or stuff that's tangential and stuff that I don't understand. And all of that stuff, that's fine. But I think that what he writes that I love more than anybody else does. So I love Stephen Erikson as a writer. I love Malazan Book of the Fallen. So he absolutely deserves to be here in my top 5. At number 4, we have John Williams. A writer of contemporary fiction, historical fiction, epistolary novels, westerns, literary fiction. Who knows? And this may be controversial because I discovered John Williams last year and I have now read his 3 main novels. The first one, it doesn't really count. Nothing But the Night or something like that. He didn't even count those. And I'm very sad that he's only written 3 really major novels because they are, especially Stoner and Augustus, are some of my favorites ever now. I don't know how it happened. I don't know how a, literary fiction writer, I don't know how he became one of my favorites, but John Williams may have my favorite writing style of any author, ever. I may like his writing better than I like anybody else's writing. And that is such, I know that's a huge high bar, but it is so simple to read. His prose is so simple to read and so simple to understand, and yet has such a quiet beauty about it. It's not ostentatious. No, it's just, it does not insist upon itself, Lois.
It insists upon itself, Lois.
And just his study of the human, the human mind and the way he is able to create in epistolary format with ancient Romans, the way he is able to carve out these 3-dimensional characters that feel so real as if they were alive today. I don't know how he does it. But it is absolutely brilliant, and I love it. I will listen, just like with Cornwell, where every time I finish an audiobook, I just want to restart Winter King. I want to restart Stoner, and I want to restart Augustus, and I just want to listen to him again because I love it so much. So Williams came out of nowhere like a thief in the night. Just snuck in, was boom, claiming my place in the top 4. I love John Williams. I love his writing. I love how real and how understandable his characters are and how relatable. Even if we're not oh yeah, I'm like that, it's oh no, I know what that is. It's absolutely remarkable. So yes, John Williams absolutely deserves a spot. Even though he is neither science fiction nor fantasy writer, he deserves a spot at my in my top authors for sure. And now for the top 3. And number 3 is Daniel Abraham. And so with these top 3, it's bizarre because I think they're a pretty solid top 3. And yet, there are books of theirs that I don't particularly love. But it doesn't change the fact that the ones that I do love, I love more than any other books. So Daniel Abraham, I love Daniel Abraham's character work. Daniel Abraham can make a character come to life and talk about something that I have seen in, it's a normal thing that occurs in, human relationships and in other books, something as simple as a love triangle. And he can take it and make it not annoying, and instead make it so painfully real and so painfully 3-dimensional and popping off the page. Long Price Quartet is one of my favorite series. The characters in that are, I've never seen characters act like that, as real people. in those situations. The same thing in the Dagger and the Coin. There's a character in the Dagger and the Coin series that is one of the most pitiable and well done characters like ever. Same thing in Long Price Quartet. And I'm reading the second book of the Blade of Dreams, second book in the Kithamar trilogy, and just the way that he just describes human emotion, or describes a city, or these little movements that you're like, yes, that is what people do. You just don't realize that it's not there until you see it. You don't realize that it's not there in other like books until you see it. And he is just, I don't know how to describe it. Like, many people don't like Daniel Abraham. They think his books are very, very slow burn. I have not read any of his Expanse series, but that's him and someone else. And all of his books are slow burn. Absolutely. Long Price Quartet, like, most people hate Shadow and Summer. That's fine. Most people, I don't know a ton of people talking about Dagger and Coin. I know a bunch of people didn't like Age of Ash. But what people don't like about those books are exactly what I love about them. He just does such an amazing job drawing these amazing characters and I don't necessarily even like them. I don't even like these characters half the time. But they feel so human. And I don't like, because I'm not like, I like cool stuff to happen in my books. I do. But Daniel Abraham really, really made me make the exception for just how incredible character work can be. And so he's an autobi author. Like, I don't even I'm so tired of reading arcs, but I saw Blade of Dream was out and I'm like, gotta read it. Sorry. Like, I will always buy the next thing that comes out with, just because that is how much I love his writing and how much I love LPQ. And here we are at the top 2. And number 2 is KJ Parker. I have read KJ Parker more than any other author since I started BookTube. I have read all of his novellas, and all of his short fiction, except for the new collection Under My Skin that has just come out, or supposed to come out on the 31st of March, and I pre-ordered it and haven't gotten it yet. So, Subterranean Press, you're slow. Hurry up. So I'm assuming that'll get to me at some point. And I've read all of his standalones, and I'm this year going to start with his trilogies. And I do not know what it is about Parker, and I absolutely understand why people don't like KJ Parker. I do. I understand more about why people don't like KJ Parker than why people don't like the other authors that are on this list. I'm like, okay, I don't know. I mean, I guess, there's no accounting for taste or whatever. I get it. If you don't like KJ Parker, I get it. The man can talk about military logistics, or the inner workings of an economy, or the inner workings of politics, or how to make an arrow, or how to set up a freaking homestead, or how to be a farmer for so long. Paragraphs, pages. And many things don't happen in these books. Nothing happens. But again, his insight into the human mind and what makes humans bad. Really, I don't think anybody writes the tiny evils of humanity better than KJ Parker. And I love the way I love his writing style. It's just it's like a Pratchett but more cynical, I guess. And I also just love the themes that he discusses. And I love how slow of a burn his novels are. Now, again, I don't like every KJ Parker book. I don't. But even the ones I don't like, I love the way he tells them. There's a lot of his shorter fiction, like his short stories, that I don't enjoy. In fact, I think I enjoy fewer of his short stories than I didn't enjoy, or that I just thought were mid or forgettable. But his standalones and a couple of his novellas, a couple standout novellas, especially Purple and Black, which has just lived, and I read it again last year because I loved it so much. But The Hammer and The Folding Knife and The Company and now Savages, I think about them all the time. All the time. All the time. I think about them all the time. So I don't know how he could not be one of my favorite authors, because of just how I don't know anybody who writes brilliant characters better than KJ Parker. The characters that he writes are, everyone says, we hear that they're smart, and then we see how brilliant they are, and I'm like, holy crap. And I'm just always so impressed about how he can make the mundane have such high stakes or seem interesting. So I love KJ Parker. I'm so happy that he's still alive. I actually just recently ordered some books by Tom Holt, which is his actual name. KJ Parker's his alias. And I'm going to read those as well. I will always I own every single KJ Parker book, every single one. I own it in hard copy, and I'm going to keep doing that because I love KJ Parker so much. So much. And now, time for my number one author. And probably a surprise to no one. And I actually really debated on whether or not I was going to put this author at the top. Because I'm like, is this really my favorite author? Because I don't enjoy every one of the books. But it's Terry Pratchett. And I don't. There are many Discworld books that I think are mid. And there are a couple that I don't like at all. Like Pyramids, or Color of Magic, or Light Fantasy, or really anything with Rincewind until Interesting Time. But I cannot overstate how influential Terry Pratchett was in in just like crafting much of my personality, what I find funny, my love of wordplay and the English language in and of itself. I don't think there's a writer with a better command of the English language than Terry Pratchett. I just don't. And the books that I love, especially the City Watch books, as you guys know, they just mean so much to me, and they speak so much to me. Vimes and his yearning for what is right, and his determination to do what is right. And again, I think when Terry Pratchett is on point, he's one of the funniest authors. But I don't read him because he's funny. I think a lot of the earlier books are funnier than some of the later ones. I think Guards the funniest of the Watch books, but I don't really read them because they're funny. They end up being more clever than funny, I think, and with some funny dialogue. I mean, that's true. There's certain characters who are always going to say something funny, but I just love the way he crafts a sentence. I love the way he deals with deep and important social issues without seeming like feeling like I'm reading like a screed. I love Discworld, and I've loved Discworld ever since 11th grade when a friend of mine said, "Hey, read Hogfather," and I read Hogfather, and then I went back and started with Color Magic and read all the way through. And I think, and I've always loved Guards, but I think especially as I've gotten older and that kind of inner crystallized core of Asperger's has solidified around justice and fairness, that I've really, really kind of glommed on to Vimes and the Watch crew. Just Terry Pratchett has, I just think about Discworld all the time. I still say words that I learned in Discworld book. I still use turns of phrases that I learned in Discworld. I still on the regular make jokes that I read in Discworld books. All the time. It is just so formative with me as a person, which sounds so dramatic, right? Oh my gosh, he just made me who I am today. It's not what I'm saying, except that, it's just really formative in the things that I enjoy. It was very, very formative for my reading journey, so I love Terry Pratchett, even if I don't like all of his books. But I've still read some, and I still throw in a Discworld book every now and then, and I have read some recently, and every time I read it, I'm just reminded about how brilliant Pratchett is as an author. And so, no, I don't think Terry Pratchett's worst is better than a lot of this on this list. But Terry Pratchett at his best, in Guards or Night Watch, I think he does. I love it more than anything else I've ever read. That is my top 10 list. Yeah, don't go down there and argue with me. I will be back again in the next year and to see if anything's changed. And even if not, I'll write major changes at the bottom, so you'll click on it. And then I'll say no, it's not major changes. It'll be like a 1-minute video saying, yeah, it's the same as last year. I'm actually not sure. Am I reading any new authors this year? I have read some already, but they haven't displaced these guys yet. But regardless, so if you don't have a BookTube channel and haven't done this, or you don't want to, type in the comments, be who. You don't have to tell me your top 10 if you don't want to. Tell me your top 5 favorite authors. That's fine. So yes, guys. Thank you so much for watching. That's all for me for today. As always, information about my Patreon and Discord is down in the description, and I'll see you next time, guys.